Hi, my name is Rui, and this is the Synth UX Academy podcast. This is the first episode, and I'm pretty excited. I'm probably going to be f***ing up a lot of things here, but hey. To bring some context to this, I started a few months ago a little thing online where I bring my teaching, my education to the online space. Before that, I was a teacher for about 7 years now. I'm teaching product design, and due to COVID, I had to move things online, so this is part of it. Now, when I design my course, I do all sorts of interviews with people and I bring them to class. But because of COVID, we couldn't really do that. And then I thought, what if I would just do interviews with designers from all over the world and just record them to construct my courses? And I thought, why not just release it as a podcast? It was kind of like a natural progression from just making a course out of it. So this is this podcast. I'm going to make this short. The idea that we're going to be talking about today is randomness and how we create randomness by tapping into nature. And the person I'm going to be interviewing is Michelangelo from Clatters Machines. And he's in Italy, in Rome, working with his partner, who is also a graphic designer. And it was a really insightful conversation about how he, as an engineer, comes up with the idea for a little module that will tap into nature, capture data, and translate it to control voltage to be able to control your synthesizer. So, without further ado, Michelangelo, Clatters Machines.
I thought, why not try to build my own synthesizer? So it all started from there just for fun. And then a couple of years ago, I read something about the MIDI sprout, and I thought it was such a beautiful idea. And since also my background studies were mostly founded around data processing from living beings, I thought okay, maybe I can do my own circuit with my own style, with a different approach in data recording from living beings. And so it all started from there just for fun. And after almost 1.5 years of prototyping, the Garden Listener was born.
Cool. So the idea, you actually worked with data from biological beings earlier.
Yes,
when you studied in Glasgow.
Yeah, in my university, yeah.
Right. And then when you started working on this, how did the first prototype look like?
Let me show you. So actually, everything starts with a breadboard, but since it's not a permanent type of circuit, I always proceed step by step. I mean, the first thing I did was this one. Okay, it's just a little, very ugly box and huge. Let me just see if I'm recording it with the other camera. This one. And I actually proceed step by step. And what I mean is that even though at the time my idea of Garden Listener was already there, I mean, I wanted to do something that was able to capture signals from living beings and transform them into MIDI data and CV signal. What I think is very useful, and actually what I think is the best way to proceed is taking it step by step. So trying to divide the whole project into different areas, work on them separately, and then try to mix them all together. Mm-hmm. So actually the first idea was just a little machine that was able to capture signal from human being and transforming them into MIDI data. So right. This is actually something which is not related to the Eurorack world. Just a simple box with a lot of ugly wires and was just to understand if I was just to understand if the idea was good, if I was going in the right direction. Because before trying to convert all this MIDI data into CV signal, I have to be sure that those MIDI data are correct in terms of what the probes are capturing from living beings.
Yeah.
So if you try to make the more complex you go, the more likely you're going to make mistakes. So it's better if you start simple. You're sure that everything you're doing is correct. Once you're sure that everything is correct, you go to the next step.
Yeah.
So the next step in terms of this little ugly machine was trying to understand if all the small errors I could hear was actually due to just some magnetic fields that creates when you work with all of these wires completely uncovered, or if it was a mistake due to actually my calculation, my code, or my circuit design. So I went for a more stable and, let's say, less ugly prototype. So the next step was just to bring this type of prototype in a more permanent way, just to making sure that all the small errors I could hear were just due to magnetic fields and not to my personal circuit prototyping or just coding. So I went for a more stable prototype, which is made out of printed circuit board, in which everything is like more compact. Actually, this is just to understand if what I'm doing is right, what is on my laptop is right, because prototyping, at least just for me, it's also made out of sketches on paper, but also on software, because if you have to print a final circuit board, you have to have some kind of files. I personally use KiCad, and I have to be sure that what's on KiCad is the same thing that it's on my paper or it's on my prototype on the breadboard. So there it comes a time in which you have to try to print the real circuit board just to be sure that everything you're doing is right.
Yeah.
And after this one, the next step should be actually come back to the prototyping board and trying to understand how to convert these MIDI data into CV signals. And after that prototype, another breadboard prototyping, we came with a final design that you see on our Instagram page of the Garden Listener.
So the first prototype you showed me, this large box, this was initiated before any sketches or anything like that. It was just like looking into the electronics, trying to figure out the code, tweaking things in this box.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. And then from there, did you was there a moment of testing with other people, or was it just internally?
Yeah, sure. Actually, it's all about testing. I mean, every day it's a testing day, let's say, because if you you have to, especially with this kind of product in which everything is quite very random. So there's no way to understand, okay, this is working properly, okay, this is not working, because actually every living being produces a different kind of signal. So you are not able to understand if this is going in the right direction or in the wrong one. So the only thing to do was like testing with also some other softwares for analyzing MIDI data, or actually trying to play it with Ableton. I personally use Ableton, so I try to control some VST and trying to understand if this is something musical that people would love it, or that could have been useful in some kind of way.
Yeah. And was this tested also with other people once you figured it out?
Yeah. Actually, we are in our company, we are two people. There's me, which is like more the electronic designer, and then my girlfriend, which is a graphic designer. So everything you see, if you like it, if it looks good, it's because of her.
Yeah.
And she's a musician too. And we have actually a lot of friends that play music and make music in different styles and different ways. So I just produce a lot of these little guys and send it all around Italy to my friends, just to know what their thoughts were.
Yeah. And then what kind of feedback did you get? Do you remember any like specific feedback that you felt like, oh, this is like this is a milestone. I really need to change a bunch of things here, and then I'm going to get to a completely different
actually,
level.
everything, they were all quite happy with this. And the only thing everyone asked for was like to be able to be more in control of what is happening. Because actually, once you plug this little guy with a plant and with the MIDI port to your laptop, everything is going on. It's actually out of your control.
Right. So yeah. So there is actually no interaction other than just connecting this with the plant. Actually, the only interaction is between the plant and the program.
Yeah.
And then so everybody were like, okay, can I have a bit more control? What kind of control did they ask for?
Well, like trying to actually address the MIDI port, for example, just to in this prototype, you were not able to choose the MIDI channel.
Mm-hmm.
So they were actually asking for something more in which they could control actually more stuff into the DAW. So being able to select the MIDI channel if you're actually using more machines with different MIDI channels, that could be quite confusing if you're not able to select one specific for this type of instrument.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The other thing was like being able to control actually the sensitivity of the probes, which at this stage we had sensibility control, but it was kind of an early prototype, an early attempt. So we tried to figure it out how to improve this aspect.
Yeah.
So that's basically with this kind of feedback, we realized that a sort of menu was needed with different parameters to be changed and controlled easily.
Right. Okay, so that's then the second prototype. And did you make another one that was only MIDI, or did you move right away to the CV version?
No, we went for the CV directly for the CV version.
Was it always the plan to go towards Eurorack?
No, actually, a lot of testing were done with my fingers, because it's actually easier. I mean, you don't have to plug all the snap-on electrodes on the plant. You have to be sure that the hydration status of the plant is good, and which the plant it's actually fine. So just for simplicity and because it's actually faster and easier, sometimes I just use my fingers on the probes.
Yeah, and then so when you started about 2 years ago, you started with only controlling MIDI, but was always the goal to make a Eurorack module?
Yeah.
Okay, so this was always the goal. You had to start first of all with something that actually just creates MIDI signals, and then
Yeah,
from there
exactly.
shift
I
towards.
just went step by step from the easiest step to the hardest one,
Yeah.
just to be sure that all the process, everything inside the process was right. I mean, if I started from just let's say I'm starting right now and I want to prototype something like this. If the CV signal is not working, maybe an error could be everywhere. But if you're sure that everything you have done before is right, the error just could be in the last step you did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Was just a way to be sure that the troubleshooting process could have been done in an easier way.
Yeah.
Because I mean, troubleshoot when you prototype something. Be sure that on your first try, nothing is going to work. that there will always be some mistake somewhere. And troubleshooting can be actually quite hard and time consuming. So actually, I'm always trying to minimize the troubleshooting time by keep things simple, be sure they're working, and then trying to make them more complex and complex and complex until I'm satisfied with the result.
Yeah. So that's on the technical side, to not really add a lot of variables at the same time. Every
Exactly.
time you add one or two variables, you test them out, and then you move on to another one. Otherwise, it can get
Yeah.
out of control. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so then you had that prototype, and you had all this feedback, and you figured out I actually need to have a bunch of controls there. How did you? What was the next prototype?
So the next prototype is here. Let me just show you. It's actually quite similar to the official version. Something changed is this one. Let me just see if I'm okay. This is actually very close to the final product. We actually just changed something in terms of aesthetics. There's nothing more. The electronics and all the coding stuff is actually the same of the final product. We actually just realized that things could have been done in a different way, in a way that actually we like it, in terms of just lights and stuff like that. But this is actually the closest thing we got. The closest to the final product.
So in terms of the interaction, once you had the initial feedback from your friends, then you basically just had to implement it into the design.
Yeah. And basically, actually, this was easier just because this is more in terms of electronics. This is not so complex, and so there are not so many things. It's actually more about coding. So it was actually easier to jump from one stage to the other, because there are not so many things that changed in terms of electronic circuit and components.
How did you figure out the interaction itself? I know that you need to press a button, and then you can hold it, and like it can get fairly complex with this with interaction in general. So how did you make a decision on how it would be interacted with?
We try to keep it very simple, just because this is more like an experimenting module, something that probably you cannot control on stage, for example.
Mm-hmm.
This is something meant more like for experimenting, trying to understand and to discover different patterns and new stuff, new ways to to make music. So actually controls are quite simple, just because um, when if you're talking about randomness, that that's complex enough. So keep it simple was really the key of everything. So
Yeah, but you do have a few lights there, and you can control a bunch of different things.
yeah.
So how did you decide on what things should actually be controllable?
It all depends on what's your vision on the instrument. I mean, this is meant to be a very random module. So if you the more control you add, the less random it is. So, for example, you have some control on the musical scales, but you actually cannot decide exactly which note you're about to hear. That's a feature that could have been implemented, but we didn't, just because it wasn't as the right thing to do. If you the more things you control, the less random it is.
Yeah, but then
so we just decided to control like sensitivity and MIDI channel, so musical scale and nothing more.
So sensitivity, channel, and musical scale.
Yeah, and actually LED brightness, but this is just for ambience, and it's not related to music.
And then once you created this the first prototype with CV, was that tested as well?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
With other people?
No, just us.
Just you?
Yeah.
And then you just made a batch and started selling it?
No, of course. I mean, it wasn't. I wouldn't call it testing. Just send it to some friends just to know their thoughts.
Yeah.
But actually, I wasn't looking for some feedbacks in terms of, okay, cool, this should do this and that.
So what
I
were
was
you
just
looking
trying
for?
to understand, okay, do you think this is something valuable? This is something you would buy?
Yeah. So when I'm teaching user experience design, this is what I define as the core of a test.
Yeah.
Because bottom line, it's about someone willing to buy this and play it because they really, really enjoy it. So what kind of feedback did you get from people when you gave them and you started asking for their thoughts?
Well, they were actually enthusiastic about this. So actually, that was the only moment in which I understood, okay, what I'm doing is good. Yeah, this is going in the right direction. We can be ready for selling.
Yeah. But this was actually quite late in the process. So like at the beginning, when you sent it to your friends, when you just had the initial box, this was just to test for the technicality, if the technicality works. You didn't really ask them for their opinion on like, would they actually buy it?
Yeah, no, that just was for technical reasons. And actually, quite later, we decided that maybe a simple product like this could have been also sold for people that are not into the Eurorack world. It can be like more like a desktop synth or product.
Yeah. And
But this was what at the beginning this wasn't actually meant to be sold, and actually it's not yet, because we are looking for a nice acrylic case, and things are going to evolve somewhere.
So you actually want to create a like a product out of it.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Yeah. I think it makes sense. There are a lot of people who are not using modular, and just MIDI
Yeah,
is,
exactly.
yeah, cool. And then, so when you started selling the product, so people didn't really get the product yet.
No, not yet.
So it's a bit hard. You
I
don't really.
actually sent it to some people I knew just for, let's say, marketing stuff. So I
Mhm.
actually had already had some completely external feedback.
And how was this feedback? Can you share some thoughts from there?
Well, everyone is saying that this is actually a very nice thing to experiment with, just to trying to bring some randomness to your creativity pattern of
Hmm.
making music. I mean, this could, if you, for example, if you plug the CV out of this module into, let's say, the 1 volt per octave of every, let's say, oscillator modules,
Hmm.
of course, there are going to be moments in which things will be completely out of tune and let's say non-musical, but there are
Hmm.
also going to be moments in which you stop, like, okay, this is beautiful, this is good, I have to lay it down somehow.
Yeah.
So I guess the real strength of it's exactly this one. So it's a very good thing to find inspiration and to think out of your usual scheme of making music, or composing and writing down melodies, or like controlling effects in a very random and casual way, which can be quite interesting and yeah.
And do you have in mind other projects that are going to come in the future that are inspired by this?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Well, actually, the main goal is trying to make uh, a whole rack full of just our products, being able to make music only using our products. So actually, the main goal is trying to make an oscillator, a sequencer, and a mixer, and some reverb, some delays, and stuff like that. But at the same time, actually, this can be quite time consuming, but just because you have to think about something that is valuable for a product. I mean, if let's say tomorrow I'm releasing my new oscillator, okay, why should you buy mine instead of the one from a big company?
Mm-hmm.
So actually, the hardest part is not making the oscillator, but it's trying to figure it out, like a sort of feature or something that no one has done before, and something that will convince you to buy my oscillator instead of the one from a big company.
Yeah. So would you say that that concept of randomness is going to be something you're exploring further to get that uniqueness of like clatter machines are like on in this space that's more like yours?
Yeah, I would say that. I definitely would say that.
Yeah. Cool.
I
That's
think that when you are not in control of what you're doing, most of the times, the most beautiful things happen. So that will definitely be a feature implemented in everything we will do.
I think that makes it quite of a unique standpoint. Just like you said, if you're I mean, anyone can make an oscillator from a 555 chip or just a
Yeah,
capacitor and
exactly.
resistor, for that matter. So it's really about making something that's a bit more unique, and it's really nice. It's really nice to see projects like the Garden Listener, because it feels like a complete thing. And it also, like, it makes a lot of sense that now you're saying that your partner is a graphic designer, so like the look of it
Yeah.
is not of an engineer. It's like I also saw the like the book, and I'm like, okay, there's definitely some proper graphic designer with
Yeah.
typography
Well,
typography classes behind her.
well, aesthetics is also very important, I think. For let's just take a stupid example of a mold. Everyone can make a mold. It is the easiest thing you can do, and we are actually about to release our mold. But what makes it so special? Uh, actually, there's nothing special apart from graphics, because you actually cannot came out came out with a new layout or configuration for jacks. A mold is a mold. It's like this and will always stay like this. So the only thing you can do to convince people to buy your mold is just to make it nicer.
Yeah.
So actually, sometimes it's aesthetics is actually more important than electronics.
Uh, I think in many cases it's the electronics are the least important part, because if you think about a lot of synthesizers on their core, they're basically the same thing.
Yeah.
It's a matter of like, is this knob larger here, or do you have like three faders here, or just small knobs, and is it like this big or this big, and does it
Yeah.
have these graphics or these graphics? But bottom line, everything is like an oscillator, a filter, maybe another oscillator. It's the way that you combine things together, perhaps. So I think that's what makes it really stand out, that you
Yeah.
think about the complete product and make something that would be um, for a specific target audience, this would fit, and for other people it won't, because it's really for these particular people. Nice. I'm really happy we had a chance to talk about this. Do you want to add anything about the future plans?
Well, it's actually everything quite unpredictable. We are working on a new sequencer, but the it is very complex. It's gonna take some time, but yeah, definitely the next module is gonna be a sequencer for sure.
Cool.
I actually love sequencer, uh, they actually they are like uh, the most important things you could have in terms of composition. Well,
Mm-hmm.
at least that's what I believe.
Yeah.
Because they actually allows you to do very different things, and we are trying to make it uh, as complex as we can, because just if you have just like a stupid, like let's say 8-step sequencer, that okay, this is fun but this is not useful. So we want to make actually something useful, something you would use on your everyday music experience when if you are talking about composition. And we're also actually trying to make it, let's say, as to bring some randomness in it, even though if it's a sequencer, which is actually the opposite of a random thing.
Mm-hmm.
So we are studying it, and I don't know when it's going to come out, but
What's your favorite modular sequencer?
well, I don't have a favorite. Something that it's not modular, but because it's mostly related to my musical experience. That was actually the very first sequencer I've ever touched in my entire life, and that's the Korg SQ1, which
Okay.
is completely well. I mean, it's not a Eurorack module, but it's meant for Eurorack stuff, and
Yeah.
that's actually the very first sequencer I've ever used or touched. And so it has a special place in my heart, let's say.
So you're going to use it as inspiration, but it's going to be way far, like a lot, like far from it.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. Yeah, I think that it's interesting to see the process. Like, what's the how are you planning this ahead? Is there like now prototyping, coding, sketching? Do you already start thinking about the design of the interface and the interaction, or you just think about the functionality?
Right now, I'm just thinking about the functionality. It's more like trying to sketch some, just to trying to lay down some ideas or some ideas of circuit or some ideas of the menu structures. In the early process of creating like a URAC module, actually, I'm not focused on just one aspect of the thing. I'm just trying to figure it out, how it's going to look like, what is going to perform, uh, how big or how small would it be. But yeah, I'm just saying, it's more like a confusing ocean of ideas, which I try to print off on paper or on a breadboard. And after that, usually after a couple of months of this chaotic thing, I start to understand the direction in which I want to go. And from then, actually, the more engineering part of the process starts, in which I take my breadboard, I try to design the simple circuit I can, just to understand if this is working, if I like it. And then from then I try to add more and more complexity to it.
Yeah. So the first phase is when you define the size and the functionality actually does not really have any sound in it in this phase.
No, not at all. I'm just thinking, okay, I want a sequencer. I want 8-step, 16-step, 32-step sequencer.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be able to live recording to a glide. Do I want a graphical interface or not? Just stuff like that. And this is actually also depends on what's on the market. I mean, I could make something with a very, let's say, rare part, but and maybe I will like it a lot. But I also have to think, okay, I have to sell this thing. Where should I buy all these rare parts? If I cannot find it, this is not doable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah. And do you have a specific target audience in mind when you're thinking about the people who would actually buy this particular sequencer?
No, not by now.
So that's one that's would you say that this is part of these few months to like figure this out?
I think I'm going to figure this out while I will playing with an early prototype of the sequencer. I mean, when I believe that it's only when you are playing your instrument you are going to understand which kind of musician will be more likely to buy it or not.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's
That's
actually
not something you can came out with just with your head.
yeah,
You
you need
actually
to.
have to see the product to hear how it sounds, what it does, what it's capable of.
Yeah, so you first of all play around with your ideas in your own head, but you're not really considering who is going to play it. You kind of like let go and just allow yourself to come up with the
No,
wildest
just
ideas.
by now I just want to make something fun and useful, which I personally would use in my music experience every
Yeah,
day.
yeah. And then from there, once you have the basic prototype, then you're going to start speculating who is it
Yeah,
really for. Yeah,
yeah.
cool. That's interesting. I wish I'll see more of this process in the coming months.
Sure. But probably there are going to be something on our Instagram page, definitely, for sure.
Cool.
I think also for people that it can be quite interesting, and also it's also actually social media can also gives you some feedbacks on what you're doing, on what do people want, what do people like, what do people don't want.
Yeah. How do you figure, how do you use social media for getting what people want or don't want?
Well, mostly asking questions, or just trying to understand the feedback I get from, let's say, a post or an Instagram stories and stuff like that. Actually, it's not there's not so much interaction, but um, uh, I, I guess asking questions through Instagram stories can be quite helpful.
Interesting. Do you remember any particular question you asked and the feedback you got that felt like, oh, interesting, I have now more substance to something that I was thinking about already, or maybe, oh, this is really surprising, I had no idea people are going to be looking at this way.
Well, actually, not in this way, but we just try to understand. In the early days, we just tried to understand if what we were doing was something that people actually would have liked it. So we actually received just a lot of feedback in terms of, okay, a lot of people were like, "Oh, this is cool. I really want it. What is it doing? What is it not doing?" And stuff like that. So we actually understood through social media that what we were doing was something actually valuable, and that
So
people would have loved it.
weren't you afraid that people are going to steal your idea?
No, 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 because actually there are, as I say, this is more about programming than circuitry. So actually, no one has the code except for me. So
Okay, so you felt like, yeah, I mean, no one can really code this.
yeah.
So okay, it's interesting. It's interesting, but there are other devices that create randomness, or like use also props to grab data that you know of.
The Shion Instro, for sure.
Okay.
But actually, we wanted to go in the opposite direction of that, because, as I said, like, for example, the Shion has tons of controls in which you can actually tame what the data flow that probes are sending to your URAC module.
Mm-hmm.
We actually wanted to go in the opposite direction. I mean, uh, we just wanted real randomness, and all the controls you have on this front panel, they are actually not designed just to tame what is going on inside this thing, but it's actually these controls are actually made for you in order to adapt to what the plant is doing.
That's really interesting. It's for you to adapt to what the plant is doing.
Well, if you are using this module, you have to understand that you are not in control of what is going on.
Yeah. So it's actually not about control. It's just about
Which
you
is
understanding the plant.
it's happening in the shield.
Sorry, you were
Yeah.
breaking for a second.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. No, I was saying, if you're using this module, you have to understand and to know that you are actually not in control of what is happening. And
Yeah.
that's the beauty of it, I think, because other devices like the Shion from Instro is more like for you to control what is happening inside the plant. I mean, you are receiving a sort of signals, and you decide which part of that signal is going to affect your Eurorack. And in this one, we actually decided to go in the opposite direction. So all the controls you have, they're actually for you to adapt to what is going on the probes.
Come again? For you too?
This is actually for you to adapt to what is going on inside the plant, what signals the plants it's sending to your module. It's actually to get the best out of the signals you are receiving.
Yeah, I think I understand what you mean. I think I understand what you mean. You're saying that as a user, you receive the data from the plant, and you can route this data, but there is not much of and you can perhaps minimize it to a certain degree.
Yeah.
But other than that, there is not much you could do with it. You're just like transferring whatever is there directly into your system.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's what makes it stand out.
Yeah, I think that what makes it so different from everything you can find on the market, I think.
Yeah.
And actually, that's what I love about randomness, because if you are talking about randomness, there isn't actually real randomness in electronics. I mean, even a Turing machine or something like that, which is reported to be random, it's actually not random, because all the sequence is actually decided from a microcontroller, and someone has programmed that microcontroller. So it's actually not real randomness, let's say.
Yeah. And yeah, you could white noise is complete randomness, isn't it? Yeah, but then sample and hold is not going to be complete randomness.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good point.
That's kind of a tricky point, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, thanks so much. I think this was really valuable. I really appreciate that you took the time for this, and yeah, I'm looking forward to see the sequencer.
Yeah, sure.
Cool. Michelangelo, thanks so much. All right.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Bye.